Hi, welcome to the DMX Krew podcast. Today I'm going to do something completely different. I'm not going to play you any records. I'm taking you to my studio and we're going to make some music together. I'm not sure what it's going to turn out like, but I thought it might be fun for the geekier ones among you to check out some of the machines and stuff I use and how I go about making tunes. So if you're not into music recording and synths and stuff like that, then suggest you skip to the next podcast, which will be playing records again. But for now I'm going to dive into the geeky stuff. I've turned on a synth, which is a modular synth built by a company from Cornwall called Analog Systems, and I've turned on my sampler and I've been loading in some drum samples from a couple of old drum machines that I downloaded from the internet, and they're going to start making some noises now. Okay, so this is the modular synth. At the moment I've got one oscillator playing a square wave, and that's going into a low-pass filter, and the whole thing's being controlled by a box made by Kenton, which is called a Pro Solo, which lets you play the synth from MIDI. So I've got a MIDI keyboard here, and I can play notes. I'm going to hook up a couple more oscillators and start tweaking them about and see what sounds we can come up with. So I'm going to start by mixing in another oscillator. So that's another oscillator, also a square wave, and an octave above. And the next thing I'm going to do is hook up an LFO to the pulse width of each oscillator so that the pulse width changes, which gives you a nice chorusy sound. If I'm losing you, don't worry about it. I hope you just enjoy the noises. But if the technical stuff's really boring you to death, then do skip to the end and hopefully be a tune to listen to. Okay, so a bit of pulse width modulation. I've got two LFOs on my modular synth, so I can have each oscillator having its modulation at a different speed. So I'll play them separately and then we'll mix them together. Sounding quite meaty and going to be fun to make a bass line out of that, I think, but I'm going to layer up some more stuff just because I can. I've got another filter and another oscillator left on my modular, so I'm going to put the third oscillator through a different filter and we'll have a listen to that. I'll turn off what we've done so far and just play you the new oscillator. So this is a waveform that's somewhere between a sawtooth and a triangle, just going through a low pass filter. It's a slightly different design of filter to the other one, but pretty simple sound, and I'm going to add a bit of modulation to the filter to make it a bit more interesting. Okay, so that filter's got some envelope, making it snappy, and it's also being controlled by how hard I hit the key. So if I hit the key very softly, you get a more dull sound, and if I hit it hard, you get a brighter sound. So I can control some dynamics in that way. Another little feature I've got on my modular is something called a ring modulator, which you put two signals in and it does some maths to the frequencies and outputs a new sound which is related to the sum and the difference of the two frequencies you put in. I'm going to put in oscillators 1 and 2, which are tuned an octave apart, and going to put that through the same filter that we're using at the moment. Here's what that sounds like. So that's those two oscillators we started with the pulse width modulation, going through a ring modulator and going through that filter, so I've still got my modulation control on the filter. I'm going to mix everything together now and hopefully it's going to sound nice and fat. That's the ring mod. That's oscillator 3. And here come oscillators 1 and 2. And finally I'm going to add a bit of modulation to the first filter. At the moment that's pretty much open. I'm going to control it with an LFO and an envelope, so it has a bit of snap to it and a bit of slow variation over time. There's the LFO. You can hear each note slightly different each time because the LFO is sweeping the filter up and down very slowly. Okay, let's play some notes into the sequencer and make a bass line. Sequencer I'm using is Akai MPC 1000, which is a sampling drum machine and a MIDI sequencer. We're not going to use the sampling side at all today. I'm just going to use it to control synths by MIDI. And I'm just going to put it in step record and play some notes in. I'm going to hit some of the notes hard and some of the notes soft so that we get some dynamic interest in the bass line. That was 4 bars worth of notes, 16 notes per bar, and the sequencer will play them back evenly spaced, even though I played them quite hesitantly because I was thinking about what note to play next. So hopefully we're going to hear some kind of funky bass line now. Sound too bad. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tell the sequencer to play all the notes the same length, and I'm going to delete some notes more or less at random just to try and make the timing a bit funkier. At the moment it's very straight, strictly on every 16th note, so let's have a few gaps. Less is more. Okay, that was pretty random. Let's see what it sounds like. I'm just going to tweak some of the settings on the synths to see if I can make it sound a bit more pleasing. Yeah, turning up the resonance makes it sound nice. Okay, that's enough of that for now. Now I've loaded up some drum sounds into my sampler. I've got a few samples from a Fairlight, which was a mythical production machine from the 1980s, one of the earliest sampling and sequencing systems that used to cost more than a house and was used to make lots of huge hits. It really did used to cost more than a house. Unbelievable. Anyway, now we can have the samples for nothing from the internet and use some similar sounds. And I've also got some samples from a very, very early programmable drum machine from Italy made by a company called Echo, and their analog sounds which I've sampled, so hopefully we'll get a nice contrast between the two feelings. Here are the Fairlight sounds. And here are the Echo sounds. So I'm going to start by doing a similar thing to what I did with the bass line. I'm going to program some echo hi-hats, just using step time on the MPC and hitting the keys at different velocities to add a bit of dynamic interest to the hi-hat pattern. So that's what we get back. Sounds quite funky. I don't think the actual original machine could have produced those kind of velocity variations, but it sounds nice and tight, but with a kind of vintage feel. So I'm just going to copy that pattern over 4 bars, and then we'll start adding some more sounds. So there's the snare, obviously fairly predictable. Try and do something more interesting with the kick drum. So this time, instead of using step record, I'm actually playing real time, and the MPC quantizes the notes, it moves them to the nearest 16th beat. So it's strictly in time. I'm now going to go into the edit page on the MPC and tweak the velocities of the kick drums a bit to make them sound a bit more the way a drummer would play, with some loud notes and some soft notes. So now you can hear there's some loud notes and some soft notes in the pattern, and bringing back in the hi-hat and the snare. I think I want to turn those hi-hats down a bit. At present I've got everything coming out of one output of the sampler all mixed together, so the quickest way for me to turn the hi-hats down is to go into the sampler and turn down the volume with the samples. Okay, that's a bit better. Got some more percussion sounds here from the echo, so let's add a bit of some of this deep tom, I think. And maybe some of these other sounds, let's have a look. That'll do me for now. I think I'm going to move over to the Fairlight and add some of these Fairlight samples as well. Nice Princey feel to this snare drum. Okay, I'm going to play this in. Nice thing about having these drum sounds in the sampler is I can go in and tune them up and down very easily. So I think some of these hand claps might sound nice pitched down a bit. Let's have a play with that. Okay, I'm just adjusting the volume levels of some of these claps. and the pitch. I quite like that. I'm going to bring in the bass line now and see how it goes together. Some music. Next thing I want to do is route the drum sounds to separate channels on my mixing desk so that we can start adding effects like reverb and flange and echo and stuff. So what I'll probably do is stop recording for a minute because it's going to take me 5 minutes to wire everything up. So I'll see you in a second. Okay, I'm back. So now I've got all my drum sounds from the Fairlight on separate channels on my mixing desk, so I will be able to play with them a bit more, EQ each sound separately and add some effects. I'm going to turn on some effects units now. I've got a Bell delay processor, which is a fairly high-end delay unit from the 80s, worth next to nothing now, although I think all these old things are shooting up in value again. But it's a very good digital delay with some interesting options for analog control, which we might get into later. And I'm going to turn on a Lexicon MPX1, which is a fairly budget or mid-price range multi-effects unit from Lexicon with some very good quality reverbs and stuff in it and lots of interesting programming options. And I've also got a very cheap Spring Reverb and a very low budget Boss effects unit called an SE50, which has some nice gated reverbs that I like using for snares. So I'm going to turn on all four of those and have them ready for action. Have a bit of a tweak with those drum sounds and some effects. Okay, first what I'm going to do is just play the Fairlight drums without the echo drums and see what might sound nice with them. Definitely want to turn the snare up a bit. And I'm going to put a bit of gated reverb on the kick. And that's a spring reverb on the hand claps. Now we're going to have a listen to the echo beatbox. I'm not going to bother splitting the sounds from the echo onto separate channels. I'm going to say that authentically it just had one output, so let's just put it on one channel. See what happens. One thing guys who make music on computers never have to do is reach around the back and look for all the cables like I'm doing now. But they don't have as much fun as me. Okay, here's the little echo beatbox on its own channel. There's some gated reverb. Let's try the spring. Very vintage sound. Giving it some bass and mid-range boost for a little cut on the treble. Let's bring the Fairlight back. I might echo a bit louder, the echo drum machine, with a bit less reverb. Going to put a bit more reverb on the Fairlight kick and take off some of the treble. And bring in the bass line. fits on the Echo drum machine. This bell delay unit, I'm putting on a very short delay. It's like a repeat, if you like. And we can modulate the delay time, which gives you a kind of chorus or flanger effect, depending on how long the delay time is. I don't know, not really feeling that. Perhaps we'll just leave it dry for now. That flanger on the handcuffs is kind of fun. The next thing I fancy doing is turning on my 808, which is a classic vintage drum machine, as used on millions and millions of classic records, not only dance records, but all kinds of things. I'm sure even those of you who aren't techno geeks are going to know the sounds. I'm going to leave the Echo drum machine running. I'm mixing the 808. I'll play the Echo quietly and the 808 over the top. There's the kick drum. Famously can be very bassy, but I'm going to have it quite snappy. And a bit of snare. I don't want to have too much 808 in this tune because it is overused, but I do love it. So perhaps just kick and snare and a bit of cymbal. And I'll turn it down now. Everything else back in. I can adjust the parameters of this 808 cymbal and make it a bit shorter. And drop the bass line again. I feel like tweaking the bass line, the sound a bit on the synth. I'm finding it a bit too percussive with all the drums. I want to make it a bit softer. And I can't resist just twisting a few knobs on the oscillators to see what happens. I think that's going to be the one to play with. That's the filter cut-off on filter number 1. So I'm just going to keep that in mind for now. Next we need some more sounds, so it's time to turn on some more synths. Okay, this is a synth called a Roland MKS80 Super Jupiter, which is a rack mount from their very famous Jupiter range of synths. It sounds a little bit like a Jupiter 8 and a little bit like a Jupiter 6, but not exactly like either of them. It's got quite an aggressive, almost digital sound for an analog synth, and it's the only polyphonic analog synth I own, which means it's the only one you can play chords on. I've got digital stuff you can play chords on, but this is the only old school analog job, and I feel like making some kind of thin sawtooth sound to play some chords on. So let's have a little play. I've got a programmer attached to it, which is also made by Roland, which lets you program it very simply using sliders. So I'm starting off with one oscillator, and it's a sawtooth wave. Okay, that was in unison mode. All the voices stacked up, which means you can't play chords, but you get a nice fat sound. I want to use it polyphonically to play chords. So it sounds a bit thinner in this mode, but I want to play chords, so that's the price we have to pay. Here's the second oscillator. I'm also going to have a sawtooth wave, and we'll mix them together and detune them a bit. See, on a nice analog synth like this, even a very simple sound, it's just two sawtooth waves. Sounds very nice indeed. And I'm going to let one of them be modulated with the LFO quite slowly for a bit more of a chorusing feel. That's a bit too much. Now I'm going to run the sequence with the bass line and see if I can make up some nice notes to play over the top. Not really happy with that, let's have another go. Just going to play without recording and fiddle about. I like that. That's the beginning. Now try and work out some other stuff to play for the rest of the 4-bar loop. I'm quite happy with that. You can hear it starting to go out of tune. I just turned it on, and as the thing warms up it drifts in and out. We can press auto tune and it will be perfectly in tune and then gradually drift off again. What I like to do is tune it about now, so it'll be perfect. And in about 10 minutes it'll be a little bit out of tune, but not too badly. I quite like it a little bit out of tune. It lets you know you're listening to a real synth. I just want to tweak the sound a bit. Adding a bit of glide, and I'm going to go over to the mixing desk and add some reverb. That's the spring reverb. That's not sounding good. I'm going to try something from the Lexicon, which is a digital effects unit. Here's a small hall simulation of playing your synth in a hall. I'm thinking perhaps I want echoes rather than reverb. Quite like that. That's a chorus delay and panning, so there's some stereo movement. I can actually tap a button on the front of the effects unit to set the tempo of the song. I'm going to tap it in a kind of syncopated way. Well, it's rather difficult to hear the discrete echoes. Anyway, hopefully we'll get some echoes which are kind of in time with the track, but in a funky way rather than a straight way. Let's listen to everything together. Clearly the Super Jupiter's far too loud. I think I want to increase the tempo of the whole song, which is easily done on the sequencer. Close the filter on the Super Jupiter a bit. I'm not happy with the last part of the sequence the Jupiter's playing, so I'm going to delete that. Keep most of it, but just delete the last bar. And I think I'm going to fill up that space in the last bar with something different from a different instrument. So let's turn on some more synths. This is the Sequential Circuits Pro 1. Very nice, fat sounding American synth. Very different character to the Roland stuff. And I want to try something quite soft. With some of those echoes that we're using from the Lexicon. I'm just turning some knobs on the Pro one to make a sound. Let's see if I can play some notes using that sound. Just turning up the snare on the 808. I think that all sounds quite nice together. Okay, here are our drums and bass line, and I'm going to get another synth now, which is another Roland. It's called an SH09, and try and think of some more stuff to add over the top of our track. That's a weird little funky sound on the SH09. Next synth I'm going to turn on is the oldest synth I own. It's called a Korg MS-10. This synth has been stored in Aphex Twin's cellar for quite a while. When he was living in a large bank building, it was stored in his bank vault, and there was a flood, and so it has been filled with Aphex Twin's piss and shit. And I've cleaned it up and it still works. I don't know if that adds some magic to the sound or if it's just disgusting, but I know some of you will find that funny. Anyway, let's turn it on and make some noises with that. Yeah, obviously all these synths are pre-MIDI, but I'm able to control them. I'm using a little box which converts MIDI into voltages, which the synths understand. So even this ancient Korg, you can just stick some electricity straight in and get it going. Very aggressive filter. So I'm modulating the filter with white noise by running a patch cable from the noise output to the filter control input. And that gives us a nice kind of fluty vibe. Well, that's a bit much. And I've got some quite subtle modulation on the pitch. I'm just noodling about trying to find something that sounds good. Hopefully something will come to me before long. Try this. Just turn off a few things and leave some drums and bass line going. Obviously it's far too loud. Just gonna mess with the drums a bit now. I think the 808 kick pattern is very boring on a straight kind of house feel, so I'm going to change it up a bit. Here's our Super Jupiter and our Pro one. I feel like moving the Pro one up an octave, so let's do that. Just a quick edit on the sequencer, tell it to transpose it by 12 semitones. No, I hate that, so I'm going to press undo. Sometimes you go up a dead end when you're making a track, and I reckon that the SH09 part and the MS10 part are both rubbish, so I'm going to get rid of them and just keep the other parts. I'm a very lucky boy because I've got lots of synths in my studio, so I'm going to turn on a different one and see if I find that more inspiring. This is called a Yamaha TX81Z, and it's based on the famous DX7 FM synthesizer, which was one of the first successful digital synthesizers, and it totally revolutionised the synth market. It has lots of famous sounds that you'll have heard on records. Let's see if we can find something interesting. This is actually a patch I made to emulate a kind of Rhodes piano. Not exactly convincing, but it's a nice sound in its own right. Let's have a play with that with a bit of spring reverb, and I'll put the track on. A couple of those chords. I'm going to put them in while I remember them. to play with for now, at least. And I want to make that almost more reverb than synth. I don't think that's happening. As you can see, it's not all plain sailing. We started off on a bit of a roll with a nice bass line and drum beat, and now I'm a bit stuck, but I'll keep plugging away because that's the name of the game. That's a bit better. I'm going to go back to the SH09. Trying some different effects programs on the SH09. Let's try that. Whoops, I didn't press record. Play it again. Gonna have another go on the MS-10 now. bass line down a bit. So now I'm just playing with muting different instruments, just to have a listen to which ones go nicely together. I'm going to go back to these sampled drums now. And I just want to use a few more of the sounds. Got some cowbells here somewhere. Here they are. And a tambourine. Oh, also there's a finger snap or something. And this tom. See if any of these sound nice over the top. Put that finger snap in on every other beat. With some nice reverb on it, sounds nice. So far everything we've recorded has been quantized to be on the beat, but I want to put these cowbells in a more weird timing, so I'm turning quantize off. I'm just going to record them manually. No, that was wrong. Let's try again. Now I'm not into that, I'm going to leave the cowbell out of things. Okay, I'm pretty happy with what we've got so far. Generally what I like to do in some of my tracks is to have a part A and a part B, and part B using similar sounds but played in a different way. So what I'm going to do is make a copy of what we've done so far and then start changing it. So this is our echo drum box. I'm going to change the hi-hat pattern. Just going to do it by deleting half the notes in step time. So we're left with this. And I'm going to make the kick drum pattern a bit more sparse as well. And I'm going to get rid of some of these percussions and put in some different ones. I'm going to make another 808 pattern as well to go with the new echo drum pattern. And I'm also going to make a fill on the 808 to play over the last bar of that. So hopefully we can just play that on the last bar. Too many snares in that for my liking, let's change it. Let's try that instead. Yeah, that's a cool little fill at the end of the pattern. Bring back some of the Fairlight sounds. Happy with most of it, but I want to change the snare. Listen to the bass line again. So for my B part of my song, I want something to contrast with that. I'm going to use step time again, just delete what's in this copy of the pattern, and then I'll put some new notes in. See what that sounds like. Absolutely not what I intended at all. Let's try again. Just delete everything. that sounds cool to me. Think of some other stuff to play using the same sounds as we used in part A. This is the TX81Z electric piano sound through lots of reverb. Just going to remind myself what the Super Jupiter was doing. I feel like putting some more percussion in the 808 for this section. And as we did last time, I'm going to delete some notes from the bass line just to have a bit more space in it. Much as I hate to do it, I'm going to press tune again on the Jupiter because that's a bit too out of tune for my taste. Now you can hear it's in tune again. MS-10, going to put a single note. And the SH09 as well. I'll leave the Pro one out of part B, but I've still got a synth left that we haven't used yet. I've been saving up, and that's the SH101. Something I like about the 101 is it's got its own built-in sequencer, so I'm going to use that. It lets you put slide per step, so you can make certain notes slide to the next note and other notes change to the next note cleanly. Contrast between and this. So we can make a little pattern, for example. Play it back. You can hear some of those notes slide and some of them change abruptly. Let's sync that up to the sequencer. So that's in time. The notes don't sound particularly good with our song notes, so let's try and make up some better ones. funny thing with this sequencer, you need to keep count really, because you're entering notes in step time. I think my brain just lost it, but we'll find out at the end whether it sounds any good or not. Give it a try. Hang on, I'm just going to mute the other synths so we can hear it a bit more clearly. Not bad, but I'm going to try for something a bit more interesting. Let's have another go. I think I might count out loud. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. When you heard me counting and you didn't hear a note, I was pressing the rest button. Hopefully I made something more interesting. It's hard to tell when you're just listening online, but I was kind of thinking really hard about how these notes would sound against the notes in the bass line. So let's have a listen. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. So the idea is we can switch between part A and part B and get some kind of music going on. I'm just going to whack everything in and switch between the two parts and see what it sounds like. Finally, I'm just going to pan the sounds and check the mix and EQ of everything, and then I'll just have a jam, muting different stuff, tweaking the synths around live, turning things on and off, messing things up in any way that I can think of, and I'll probably end up with 10 or 15 minutes of jamming, which I can then edit down to something between 3 and 6 minutes for a track. So I asked myself, how do I want to start? think I want the echo snare drum a bit louder, so I'm just going to go into the sampler and find it. There it is. So that's some of our echo sounds and some of our Fairlight sounds. Okay, I'm going to start jamming. I'm going to turn off the mic while I do it, just because it's a bit of a distraction. So yeah, see you on the other side. Okay, so I ended up recording about 11.5 minutes of jamming. That was about 3 days ago. I've been away for the weekend and now I'm back in a fresh state of mind. I decided to edit the track today. So I transferred the track into Ableton Live, which is a music program on the Apple Mac, and basically threw away the bits I found boring and tried to make the joins as seamless as possible by choosing to make the edits in the correct places, or occasionally by doing something a bit funky like a reverse edit, or overdubbing a couple of extra snare drums as a fill to cover up the join. I also ended up overdubbing a few other sounds. I used the Fairlight cowbell and crash cymbal that I hadn't bothered using in the jam, just chopped up little snippets of audio and placed them over the top in Ableton. And my friend gave me a triangle for my birthday, so I played a bit of that over the top of the track as well, and ended up with a just over 4 minute long track, which I'm going to play you now. I hope you've enjoyed this session. I wouldn't say it's the best track I've ever done, but it's fairly respectable, decent little tune. For me, the best part of this track is the bass line, and the rest of it could probably be replaced with something a bit better. But anyway, I'm talking too much. It's a decent track. I hope you enjoyed listening to me make it and got some insight into some of the things I do in the studio, and I hope you enjoy listening to the final track. Here it is. See you next time.